Hi everybody, this is Crystal. So today I'm going to show you how to make this bag here, right here. Now I'm going to show you everything that you need. It is not lined. I will put a video at the end and in the description box of how to line a bag that is just like this. So in case you want to line it, you can just fast forward that video to the end to where I line that bag, and then you'll get the gist of how to line this bag. I apologize, I ran out of time and I did not have time to line it. Now if you guys have been following me, you know I initially bought handles to put on this, where the handles that came did not match. They were supposed to be cream, but for some reason they are white. So I made my own, and so that's that. No handles needed unless you want to buy your own handles. That's fine, and you can make different handles, of course. These beads I strung on. It's just a pack of button type things I got at Walmart. I just used a piece of yarn and I attached this big thing and these two little flowers. And these I not super glued, hot glued right on there just for decor. It's nothing that you have to do. Now this is done with the mosaic tile stitch, which I will give you the multiple in case you want to make your bag bigger or smaller. It's worked from the bottom up. My bag measures approximately 13 inches and then 13 inches wide. Without the handle, it's about 9.5, 10, I think it'd be 10 if yeah, about 10 inches. And then if I added the handle into the mix, it's 11. Okay, so what you're going to need for this is I used Premier Everyday yarn by Deborah Norville. This came from Cinnamon Stitches Crochet. If you have not heard of her, I'll put her channel below in the comments. I always encourage you to check her out. She has a very wonderful podcast that she does. But anyways, this is her Try Me pack from Premier. Premier contacted her and asked her to put her own colors together and make a Try Me pack. Well, I purchased that Try Me pack and I used the colors that she chose. So the Premier Deborah Norville yarn is a 100% anti-peeling acrylic yarn. Of course, you do not have to use this yarn. It is a medium weight number 4. So medium weight 4 is what you're going to need to use. There are 200 yards per each one of these skeins. Now, you're probably going to need about 100 of, if you want to know the colors, if you're going to use 3 colors like me. This is coral, this is about half a skein of coral that I used. And then about a half a skein of the soft peach. And then I used, for my main color, was cream, and there's not very much of that left, so you're going to need close to 200 yards of that to finish your project if you're using 3 colors. If not, you'll probably need about 500 yards of yarn. But remember, these 3 colors came together as Cinnamon Stitches put them together herself. She did quite well. I liked the colors, so I thought I would make maybe a springtime bag. So that's that. And then I'm also going to be using a size J, which is a 6mm crochet hook. Okay, so when working this stitching around, it's done in a multiple of 3. So I went ahead and I have done a chain of 90. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow our chain down, our big long chain, and without twisting it, we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch to form one large ring. Just like that. Now what we're going to do is we are going to chain 1. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. We're going to work right back into that same stitch right here that we just slip stitched into, and we're going to work a V-stitch. So what we're going to do is we're going to yarn over, go into that same stitch, and we're going to double crochet, and then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to go back into the same stitch and double crochet again. So that's what our V-stitch is on this pattern. It's just a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now we are going to skip 2 stitches, skip, and we're going to V-stitch into the next. So we double, chain 1, and double. Again, skip 2 stitches, skip, and V-stitch into the next. And this is the pattern that we're going to repeat all the way around our big ring. We're going to skip 2 stitches, skip, and in the next V-stitch. So that's where we double, chain 1, and double. So I'm going to repeat this pattern all the way around until I get back to my starting point. Skip 2 V-stitch, skip 2 V-stitch, all the way around until we get back to the beginning. What we're doing is we are working from the bottom of the bag up, and then when we get finished, we will sew the bottom together. All right, I have come back around to my starting point, and you should have 30 V-stitches now at the end of row 1. And I have just done my last V-stitch, and I have 2 stitches left there to skip. So what I want to go ahead and do is skip those 2 stitches, and I'm going to end round 1 by slip stitching into the first double crochet of the first V-stitch. Not the chain 1, but the first double crochet. Now, my biggest weakness in crochet is changing colors and making it look nice. So I change colors by cutting my yarn every time I change colors. So I'm going to go ahead and clip my yarn off, and I'm going to switch to a different color. I have a lot more tails to hide that way, but in the end it's better for me. So now I'm going to switch. This was white, was color A, which is my main color. Now I'm going to switch to color B, which is the coral. Now remember, you can use whatever colors you want and however many colors that you want. I'm going to start into this first V-stitch. So right here is where I clipped off. I'm going to start my yarn right here inside the chain 1 space of the first V-stitch. And I'm going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, and I'm going to work a V-stitch into this spot right here. So I'm going to do a double crochet, a chain 1, and a double crochet, just like that. And now I am going to jump to the next V-stitch, the chain 1 space there in between the next V-stitch, and I'm going to do another V-stitch. So I'm going to go right into it, and I'm going to work a double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. So this is what row 2 consists of. We're working a V-stitch in the chain 1 space of every V-stitch from the previous round. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. That's my V-stitch. Jump to the next V-stitch right there, and in the chain 1 space I work another V-stitch. Double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. And I'm going to continue this pattern of working 1 V-stitch in the chain 1 space of every V-stitch from my previous round until I get back to my starting point. So that's what it starts to look like. The V-stitches are on top of each other. Okay, so I've made it back around. Please excuse the board. I put that there because I'm going to be working with my white color again, and I want you to be able to see the stitch as well. And I noticed it was not showing up very well on my white backdrop. So I put the board there to hopefully you can see it better. So I've made it back around on round 2. And I still have my 30 V-stitches, and that's what you'll have every round. So again, I'm going to end my round by slip stitching into the first double crochet of the first V-stitch. And I'm going to clip my yarn off here, and I'll hide that tail later. Now I'm going to switch back to color A. So I'm going to switch back to my white. All right, so we got these V-stitches here. we want to start way down here in row 1, down here, in between these 2 V-stitches. So here's where we started. You can see where we started right here. Here's my tail from row 1. I'm going to insert my hook into that space and pull my yarn through. So it's a little awkward at first, but you'll get the hang of it here. And then I'm going to do a chain 1, and I want to pull that tight, and then I'm going to do a V-stitch into that space. Let me make sure I'm pulling the right yarn here. I'm not. I grabbed 2 tails. So go into that space where you started. Chain 1, pull that tight. And then we're going to go back into that space and do a V-stitch. So we will double crochet, chain 1, go back way down here into that same spot and double crochet. Like I said, this first one's a little awkward, but you'll get it after that. Now we are going to jump over to the next spot in between the next V-stitches down here on this row. So here's the V-stitch, and here is a V-stitch. We want to go into the spot in between them. So we yarn over, go into that spot, pull up your yarn, and do a V-stitch. So there's a double crochet, chain 1, go back into the same spot, and double crochet. We're kind of just crushing that row 2, that color, the color coral. We're kind of just crushing it in between the rows of white. This board is kind of light, it's not showing up. I know. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. Sorry that I have to do that, but I want you to be able to see. Okay, so next we're going to jump. Here is the V-stitch from row 1, and here is a V-stitch from row 1. We want to work in between. We want to put a V-stitch in between those V-stitches. So again, we're going to yarn over and go into that space and do a double crochet, chain 1, go back into the space and do another double crochet. So that is the V-stitch. And like I said, it's just kind of smashing that coral color, and that's what it's supposed to do. And this is what I'm going to do all the way around. So again, I'm going to go in between the V-stitches from row 1 there, and do a V-stitch into that space. Like that. And I'm going to do this all the way around, and you can see what it's starting to look like a little bit. It really does look cool after you get some rows on it. Like that. Then we jump to the next space in between the next 2 V-stitches down here of your main color. Just like that. And I'm going to continue this, working a V-stitch in between the 2 V-stitches here of the row of my my first row of my main color here, just like that. And I'm going to do that until I get back to my starting point. All right, I have made it back around at the end of round 3, and again I want to apologize. You have to look at that ugly board, but I just want you to be able to see. Now you should still have your 30 V-stitches. You'll always have 30 V-stitches. Now we're going to go ahead and end the round by slip stitching into the first double crochet of our first V-stitch, and I'm going to tie off my main color, and I am going to start color C, which is the peach for me. So we are going to start it, and the very first V-stitch here, we clipped off right here, Just go ahead and start your yarn right there into that middle of that first V-stitch, and we're just going to kind of repeat what we did on row 2 down here, except for it's going to be catty-cornered. So we will chain 1, and we'll work a V-stitch into that V-stitch. So a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. And now we're going to work a V-stitch in the chain 1 space of every V-stitch here. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet for round 4. It's just similar, actually it's pretty much exactly the same as round 2, except for we're just working it in opposite directions, or like they're just catty cornered from each other. But it's just a V-stitch in the chain 1 space of every V-stitch from the previous round. So I'm going to continue this pattern for round 4, working 1 V-stitch in the chain 1 space of every V-stitch from my previous round until I get back around to my starting point. Alright, I've made it to the end of row 4, and I'm going to go ahead and end. I still got about 30 V-stitches. And by slip stitching into my first double crochet, my first V-stitch, tie that off. And now I'm going to start with color A again. So it's kind of repeating what we're doing now, working with these 3 colors. So I'm going to start color A, the row below here. So we just finished row 4. I'm going to start color A down here on row 3 in the middle of the V-stitches. So this first one's always the hardest. So remember, here's a V-stitch and here's a V-stitch. You want to start in between like that and pull your yarn through. For me, it's always the hardest, getting the tight for the first time. And then chain 1, and then you want to V-stitch into that spot. So double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet. I don't know why that's so hard for me. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a V-stitch in between every 2 V-stitches from the row prior. So down here on my main color row, here's the 2 V-stitches. I'm going to go right in between, right above this color here. Don't get into that color, just go right there, right through it, and you're kind of smashing down the colors a little bit, and then V-stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So I V-stitched into that spot. Again, go into the next spot. It's right here, right above this color, in between these 2 V-stitches from the previous round. So you go right above the color into the space, and then we V-stitch. So we double, chain 1, and double like that. And then we're going to keep repeating that pattern all the way around. So again, go in right above this, into the space, right above the color. Don't get the color tangled up in your hook or anything. Sometimes that can happen. And then V-stitch. And we're kind of, again, just kind of smashing down that colored row there. And I'm going to repeat this pattern all the way around. It's pretty much the same thing that we did on row 3, except for it's catty cornered all the way around until I get back to my starting point. Alright, I have made it back around the end of row 5, 30 V-stitches. and we're going to end the same way by slip stitching into our first double crochet of our first V-stitch. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to start repeating what we've been doing. So I'm going to start with my color B again, which is my coral, and I'm going to start again. So what we're going to be repeating is rows 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're just going to keep repeating them. You can change colors as often as you like. You can do every one of these colors different. You can do every one of these colors the same. You can do them however you choose. I'm just going to be alternating these two colors, the coral and the peach. So again, I'm going to start by repeating row 2. So I will start in the very first V-stitch here where we left off. I'm going to have a lot of tails to hide, but that's okay. Chain 1, and then I'm going to V-stitch into that chain 1 space of that first V-stitch. And then I'm going to work across, putting a V-stitch in the chain 1 space of every V-stitch from the previous round. So that's it. From now on, it's a repeat of rows 2, 3, 4, and 5. Bunch of V-stitches. Remember, whatever one that you're using for your main color is the one that always drops down the row before. So I'm going to continue repeating these rows 2, 3, 4, and 5 with the 3 colors that I'm using until I get my bag a little bit taller. Now, I'm not quite sure how many rows I'm going to do. You can do as many as you wish, but I am going to put a little bit of brim on top of mine. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to press on, and I'll let you know here in just a second how many total rows I do. Alright, I finished getting my bag as tall as I want it to be, and I have done a total of 27 rows, and then that makes my bag about 9 inches tall. But now I'm going to put a brim on it. Of course, if you want to make yours taller, you can. Now, you want to go ahead and end on your main color row, which I did here. So go ahead and end it, like always, slip stitching into your first double crochet of the first V-stitch. Don't tie off, though. Well, you can if you want. I'm going to make the brim, and I'm going to make the brim the same color. If you want to make yours a different color, you can tie off if you want. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do some single crochets. So you should have your 30 total V-stitches now at the end of round 27. I'm going to do a chain 1. I'm going to go back into that first double crochet, and I'm going to single crochet into it. I'm going to single crochet into the chain 1 space of the V-stitch, single crochet into the next double crochet of the V-stitch, and that's what I'm going to do all the way around. So I'm going to single crochet into the first double crochet of the next V-stitch, the chain 1 space of the next V-stitch, and the last double crochet of the next V-stitch. So I'm just basically putting 1 single crochet into every double crochet and every chain 1 space until I get back around to my starting point. Alright, I've made it back to my starting point on row 28, and you should have a total of 90 single crochets. So I'm not going to end with the slip stitch. I'm going to use a stitch marker here. So I'm going to place my stitch marker right here. That way I know where my round ends and where my round begins. So I'm just going to use that piece of yarn. Now what I'm going to do is round 29 will be a round of decreases, just to make the top of the bag look a little bit smaller. So I'm going to put 1 single crochet into the first 7 stitches. So we don't count that chain 1. We go into the first stitch. So we want to do 7 in a row. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now we're going to work a single crochet decrease over the next 2. So we're going to go into the next one and draw up a loop, and then the next one after that and draw up a loop. We'll have 3 loops on our hook, and we're going to yarn over and go through all 3. So that took 2 stitches and made it into 1. Now that's what I'm going to repeat for the rest of the round. 1 single crochet into the next 7 stitches. And then we're going to single crochet decrease over the next 2. So go into the next one, draw up a loop, and the next one after that, draw up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and go through all 3. So I'm just going to repeat this pattern all the way around until I get back to my stitch marker. Alright, I've made it to the end of round 29, and you should have ended in a decrease, and now you should have a total of 80 stitches. So I'm going to move my stitch marker up in for round 30. Now I'm going to decrease again, but I'm going to do 1 single crochet into the first 6 stitches, and then I'm going to do a single crochet decrease. So 1 into the first 6 stitches. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then single crochet decrease over the next 2. So that's the repeat now for round 30. Same as the last, except for we're working over 6 stitches this time. We're working 6 stitches before we decrease instead of 7. So again, we'll just put 1 single crochet into the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then decrease over the next 2. So I'm going to repeat this pattern all the way around until I get back to my stitch marker. Okay, I've made it to the end of round 30. Your last stitch should have been a decrease, and you should have 70 stitches. Now I'm going to make my handles. Remember, if you want to buy handles and use those, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull my marker up, or you don't even have to make the handles like me. You can do whatever you want for your handles, just however you want to do them. Okay, so what I'm going to do for my handles is I move my stitch marker up. I am on round 31. I am going to do a 1 single crochet into the first 9 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and there's 9. Now I'm going to make chain for however long I want my handle to be. Alright, I have done a chain of 20. Now my handle is not going to be extremely long, it's going to be more of a short handle. If you want yours longer than the way mine looks in the picture, by all means you chain it as long as you want. But I chained 20, and now I'm going to skip the next 16 stitches. And in the next one, I skipped 16, so in the 17th one, I'm going to put a single crochet. So that is my first handle. Don't worry, we're not finished yet. Now I want to do a single crochet into the next 19 stitches, but this one right here is going to count as number 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, that's 19 stitches. I'm going to do the same thing with my handle again. I'm going to do a chain of 20, skip 16 stitches, single crochet into the next one like that. So there's your second handle. Now you should have 10 stitches that remain, counting this single crochet right here. So that would be 1, 2, 3. And I do have 10 stitches that remain. So I did the 10 stitches here. And remember when we first started we did 9. So that totals a 19 on this side, which is exactly the same 19 stitches we did on the other side. So now we're going to move our stitch marker up, and we're going to go around and thicken up our handles. So go ahead and move your marker up like that. So for round 30, 32, let's go ahead and single crochet in every stitch until we get up to our chain space of our handle, and I'll show you what we're going to do there. So it'll be 9 single crochets. Okay, now we're going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch of the handle. Now we got the chain here. What I like to do is, you see the chain, I like to work in the back bump when I'm doing my handles like this. That way the chain looks more clean. So you got your front loops right here like that. If you flip your chain over, you'll see these little bumps on the back right here, right here. If you just go into that one loop of each stitch, that'll make you have a cleaner edge. And we're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of those 20 chains that we made for the handle, working in that back loop. Now if you have trouble working in the back loop, sometimes it's difficult to get it started, you can just do it regular. It's not going to make that much of a difference, but it just makes it look a little bit cleaner. So try to go in that back loop with that first one. It's always the hardest. The first one is always the hardest, isn't it? There we go. And now I'm going to work in the back loop of that little back bump, one loop of each of my 20 chain stitches of my handle. Sometimes you have to pull it up a little bit. I do anyways, and that way I can find it better. After you get past this first row of the handle, it won't be hard anymore. I promise. Like that, so that gives it a nice cleaner edge. Alright, I've made my 20 stitches of my handle. Now I'm going to put 1 single crochet into the next 19 stitches, or until I get to my next chain space of my handle, of my next handle. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing here on this handle that I did on the other one. I'm going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch of those 20 chains that I made, but I'm just going to be working in that back bump. So just repeat what you did on the other side of your handle with this one. Like I said, I'll tell you what, it's easier to do it off camera than it is on camera, because I get nervous on camera here. There we go. So I'm just going to continue working 1 single crochet in every stitch of the handle of my chain, which is 20, just working in that back bump. And remember, if you can't just go through that back loop, you can just go through the stitch like normal. It'll be just fine. Okay, so I've finished my handle. Now I'm just going to finish out my round, putting 1 single crochet in every stitch until I get to the to my stitch marker. Like that. Round 33, I think anyways. I'm going to do 1 single crochet in every stitch, and that includes the 20 stitches of the handle. So I'm going to work my way around. Putting 1 single crochet in every stitch, and then when I get up to my handle, I'm just going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch of the handle. It's easier now, I promise. It's just going through both loops just like you normally would. And I'm going to continue this pattern all the way around until I get back to my stitch marker. Just working 1 single crochet in every stitch and in every stitch of the handle. Now we're not working in this spot inside the handle. We're working around on top of the handle now. So I'm just going to continue around until I make it back to my stitch marker. Alright, I've made it to the end of round 33. I'm going to stop now. If you feel like you want your handles thicker, you can go around and around and around as much as you like. But I'm going to go ahead and move out that stitch marker, and I'm going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into that next single crochet, and I'm going to tie off my yarn. Now one more thing we have to do here is sew up that bottom. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to hide all these tails, which I'll do here later. That's embarrassing. But anyways, what we're going to do actually is flip our work inside out. So yeah, you're going to see my tails. They're going to be visible. Oh well, it happens to the best of us. Okay, so I got the wrong side of my work facing me in a gazillion tails to hide. What I want to do is you want to make sure your handles at the top are even on both sides. So I always just kind of eyeball it, look at it, make sure the spacing here on the sides are just about equal, and that your handles are lining up equally like that. That way when we sew it together, the bag will be sewn correctly and equal. So that looks about good to me. So I'm going to flip it around, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew up the bottom. You can use a yarn needle and yarn if you'd like. I'm just going to use slip stitch it together. So I'm going to grab a piece. Make sure you don't mess up how even this is here. We don't want it to look uneven when you're finished. Just keep this as even as possible. Your handles are straight here. The sides look pretty close to being even here, because when you sew it together, it's set in stone, unless you want to redo it, but no one wants to do that. So now all I'm going to do to sew it together is grab a stitch on this side and grab this stitch on the opposite side, and I'm going to slip stitch my piece together. You can use single crochet if you prefer. I'm going to slip stitch, and like I said, you can also use a yarn needle if you'd like. So I'm going through slip stitching it up, going through every stitch at the bottom on one piece, and then every stitch on the same piece on the back. So remember when we started, we skipped 2 stitches and then we made a V-stitch. Make sure you go through those 2 skip stitches and slip stitch each one of those together. So there's one of the skip stitches, and here's the next one. Go through it. Go through the same one on the back side and slip stitch it, and then you want to go into that bottom of that V-stitch there, and the same V-stitch on the back, and slip stitch it. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. Slip stitching up, matching my stitches on both sides until I'm all the way at the end. And this will secure the bottom. So make sure none of your belongings fall out. So I'm going to continue until I make it all the way across. Okay, I have made it to the end here, as you can see, single crocheting it. I always give it a little bit of a stretch, because sometimes, I slip stitch it, not single crochet. I give it a little bit of stretch, because sometimes slip stitching can make it tightened up. But just give it that bit of a stretch. Clip your yarn off there. And now we can flip our work right side out, and we'll see how that seam looks at the bottom. Has to look better than all them tails hanging around, huh? I'm really gonna hide them, I promise. Maybe, I don't know. I might just put a liner in it one day and just pretend like they're not there. Alright, let's check it out. Oh yeah, that looks awesome. That looks great. Everything lined up nicely. That's a nice seam at the bottom that made. Awesome. So now I have left to do. I think everything's pretty even at the top. I'm happy with it. I think it turned out nice. So I'm going to hide some tails, just a few. You've seen just a few, just a couple here and there. And then I'm going to be done. Now I am not going to line this bag. Initially I was going to, but I ran out of time. I have a few other tutorials on the hook, and I really need to get them done. Now if you are interested in lining this bag, I'm going to link a couple videos of mine below that I have made bags that are in similar shape like this and line them, and you can just skip to the end to where I line it, and by following that method it'll be the same for this. Pretty much you just measure your fabric all the way around in this way, and then you sew the sides up your fabric, and then you hand sew it at the top. But like I said, I'll put those videos in the link of other bags that I've lined similar to this one, and then you'll be able to watch those, and you'll get it just like that. It's very easy. I apologize that I didn't get to line this one. Maybe on another video one day I will get it lined. But I hope you enjoyed my tutorial. I hope that you were able to follow along. Okay, I think it looks awesome. Remember to check out Cinnamon Stitches Crochet YouTube channel. Check out this Try Me pack that's on Premiere. It's a really beautiful colors. It's very springy. One last thing I might do is I might take some beads from it. I don't know. I might not. We'll see. But that's it. Oh, if you look over there to the right hand side of the screen right now, I'll put a video of a bag that I lined that it is in similar shape. So click on that, just fast forward through all of it to the end to where I line it, and then you'll get the gist of how to line this one in case you want to. So thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget that thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, make that bell ring. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a good day.